emotions taking me over. I'm caught up in sorrow, lost in a song. But if you don't come back, come home to me, darling. Okay, welcome back, guys, to my space. All 76 of you. I'm so happy you're here. My name is Tendai. I am your cultural competence queen. I'm here to help you navigate life with a communication lens and to be able to understand how you can be a better human being. Have you ever wondered why some people will go through a breakup and they're just stoic? It's almost like nothing happened. You wonder if they're really feeling the emotions that came with that breakup or that relationship they had. And then when other people are watching a movie like Wall-E, they start crying and you're like, what is happening over there? That is what we're going to delve into. The power of emotional diversity. Emotions are not just about feelings. They're about navigating life with resilience, purpose, and perspective. I think when we have purpose and perspective, we're able to navigate life more equipped and with enough tools on how we can be our best selves. Remember a couple of years ago now, the song that Destiny's Child came up with? It's just emotions taking me over. I'm caught up in sorrow, lost in a song. But if you don't come back, come home to me, darling. If I can be able to impart a little bit of my wisdom to you from what I have learned, maybe that can help us be less chaotic out there in these internet streets. So what is emotional diversity, you might ask? Emotional diversity is the ability to understand your feelings, but not just about feelings. It's having the resilience and perspective to be able to embrace and navigate those specific emotions that you might be dealing with. And so I wanted to kind of curate a video that is going to be talking about what emotional diversity is, why we need to have emotional diversity, what is the science behind emotional diversity, and most importantly, how we can cultivate emotional diversity in our lives. Because I'm not going to just spew all this information and say, okay, bye, have fun. No, I'm going to help you get the adequate knowledge that has been researched, backed, all of those fun things, so that you can be a better human being out there. Because we're all about growth and accountability over here. Emotional diversity is the ability to understand and navigate a plethora of emotions, right? This involves introspection, self-awareness, and a willingness to explore and understand the full spectrum of one's emotions. What does that mean? That means you are choosing to step out of your comfort zone and acknowledge the vulnerabilities that you might possess and embracing the depth and breadth of all human feelings. Because let's be honest, we all have different feelings that we might be navigating in our lives. Like at this moment, I am feeling nervous because I am not confident in speaking in front of a camera. When it comes to really talking on the internet through my phone, it's very hard for me. And so as I am navigating the nervousness that I'm currently feeling, I am also feeling excited to be able to share this information with everyone, because this is a subject that I have found to be fascinating and something that I want to be able to share with everyone. It is true that I can have, a different kind of emotions that I'm experiencing. On one side, I'm nervous because I'm filming this video looking at my camera. And on the other side, I am excited to be sharing this topic with everyone. Important thing for me to regulate my emotions and just be like, it's fine. It's okay to have all these different emotions, because that will help me be able to execute and share what I need to share. Does that make sense? So in essence, I like to think of emotional diversity as the spice of life. So in order for a meal to taste good with all of its deliciousness, we hopefully we're adding spices to that meal. Okay, we're not going to name any names, but it's important to spice up your food, okay, as is spicing up your life. And therefore, in order to navigate, we need to be able to express full spectrum of our emotions. When you look at biodiversity, for example, we are having all these organisms living in an area, taking up space, and each on its own showing a different kind of variety of bloom. That is what we're trying to discuss and go into when it comes to emotional diversity. We want to see all the different comparisons, each ecosystem having its own way of function. Think of those ecosystems in their variety and in our own lives as a spectrum of our emotions. Let's look at Inside Out, one of my favorite movies. When we think of Inside Out, we look at Riley, and what we're seeing is that she has all these different emotions that are contributing to how she acts and perceives life. When she is, feeling joyful, which is portrayed by joy, she's happy, she's jovial. Then we're introduced to sadness, which is another emotion that we experience where it's more forlorn, tired, fatigued, scared. And then we have fear, then we have disgust, and all of the other emotions. Anxiety, when I was watching Inside 2, legit was giving me anxiety. Just like watching anxiety do its thing. I was like, listen, this is close to home. I'm flying way too close to the sun. And that's kind of how we can view our spectrum of emotions, the joy to the sadness, the anger to the gratitude, all these different opposites that seem to mesh together constantly. I want to delve into what is the science behind our emotions, and I'm going to talk about that. I'm a visual learner. I love to be able to tie in an image to what I'm trying to learn. When I was thinking about, okay, let's talk about the science behind emotional diversity. What can that look like? I found this painting online, and it's not really anything great. It's literally brushes with paint on it, but it's giving me a story. It's giving me context, and the different colors are hopefully telling a story when you look at the final product of whoever was trying to paint something. And so it is with emotions. It's called emotional graduality. This is where we have different individual abilities where we can distinguish our emotional states. So let's say I'm sitting like this. You would be like, oh, she's angry, or she's upset. Or I could be sitting like this. I'm thinking of something, I'm reminiscing of, I'm feeling happy in that moment. I'm feeling, content with whatever it is I'm thinking about. That's what it is. It's the ability to be able to label your emotions accurately. That is the main thing. Be able to label your emotions accurately in order to improve your mental health and decision making. So let me just round it up a little bit to how we began. We started by talking about emotional diversity, the power of emotional diversity, which is to able to understand and navigate a wide range of emotion. This involves introspection, self-awareness, being able to name and know the type of emotion you're going through. What does this do, you ask? This helps you become more emotionally diverse. Think of it as the spice of life. Variety of emotion, and the vulnerability you're bringing with each emotion helps you to embrace the depth and breadth of being a human being and experiencing feelings. And then we talked about biodiversity and how our emotions are kind of linked to that, in that we have variety and we have a spectrum of emotions, each coming in with its own set of things that is going to help everything flow together. I give an example of the movie Inside Out, where we can have different spectrums of emotions and what they can look like. Joy to sadness, anger to gratitude, etc., etc. And then now we're on the science behind emotional diversity. And so there's some study I picked up on that talk about this more in depth. I'm going to read an excerpt from an article I found online that talks about emotional diversity and how to dive deep into those feelings. I found some really interesting findings from this article that can help us understand the emotional ecosystem of being emotionally diverse. In this article, it says that if we are only capable of feeling one emotion at a time, there will be no room for self-awareness. Emotional diversity can protect us against toxic positivity, prepare us for dealing with loneliness, and help us reach and maintain the state of flourishing in our lives. The variety of feelings and emotional states develops our emotional intelligence, shapes our empathy skills, and improves our knowledge of ourselves and what we are truly capable of. As our emotional ecosystem grows, so does our self-awareness, and consequently strength and resilience. And that is something that at the basis of the human psyche we need to be able to have strength to navigate life, to have resilience, to keep going in the midst of different emotions. And it continues to say that humans can experience 34,000 different emotions. Just think about that. 34,000. And guess what? All of those emotions have names. It continues to say all of us feel at least 2 of them each time we take a breath. Yes, I'm still nervous. The first step to developing stellar self-knowledge is the ability to name and define your feelings. Scientists have captured as many as 27 distinct categories of emotions and provide us with tools to decode them. One of the most common is the Plutchik Wheel, a graphic presentation of primary emotions with their polar opposites, high and low frequencies, shades, strengths, combinations, and all the spaces in between. Isn't that wonderful? I will obviously have all the articles, link it in the description so that you can do your own reading in your own spare time. I love understanding how there's so many emotions that we can experience as human beings. However, it is in the naming and defining them that helps us really know what we are dealing with at any specific time. And that's what I love about the science of experiencing emotion. Now we're going to talk about why emotional diversity matters. We know what it is. We know that we have so many emotions, and we know that we can access those different emotions and use them to develop strength and resilience, but also having to need self-awareness, able to understand those emotions. Now we want to know why. Why, Tendai, are you telling us about emotional diversity? Why do I need to know that? Well, sweetie, that is an important skill that you need to have in your life, not only for yourself, but in order to thrive in the relationships you have with others, not just romantic, but platonic, with family, etc. Speaking of relationships, that's where we're gonna start. Relationships. We experience a plethora of emotions when we're in relationships with people, friendship or romantic. And understanding your emotions and the other person's emotions help us to reduce conflict and develop empathy. Because let's be honest, just because you're in a relationship with someone, especially a non-romantic one, doesn't mean you don't need to develop ways where you can reduce conflict between you and also learn to develop empathy for the other person. I think sometimes we believe that we should only put our all in terms of our mental health and emotional state when it's a romantic partnership. And we tend to discard our friendships and think that those relationships do not need just as much nurturing. And to that, I say, no, we need to be just as conscientious of how we navigate our emotions and our state of being with those platonic relationships. Because, sweetie, how are you going to survive at work with that person if you cannot even handle this friendship that you have? More or less the partner that you want to attract, or the relationship you already have with someone that you want to nurture. And so in relationships, how do you communicate with your significant other? What are some of the ways you communicate with each other? Have you learned each other's language of communication? That is a thing. I will not share it here because that's a whole other video. To truly be able to understand the other person, you need to understand understand them and speak their language. And even if you both are speaking, let's say, English, you can still be speaking very different languages. And you need to know how to understand the other person. What do they do when they're happy? What are some signs that can show me their concern? What are some signs that can tell me that I need to step in, help them, and comfort them? Like, how do we fight fair and fight well without creating chaos or without resenting one another? So those are the type of things you need to be aware of when you are thinking about how to be emotionally diverse. And I think relationships is ground zero to be able to help you navigate that. The second is leadership in the workplace. This is an uphill battle, honey, because in the workplace we experience a lot, especially if it's corporate America. Listen, that's a whole other, bag of chips and everything. In the workplace, let's say from a leadership position, how do you lead your teams? What kind of a leader are you? Are you a leader that chooses to listen and then implement and learn from what others have contributed? Or you're the leader who says, this is my way or the highway? Emotionally diverse leaders are better able to handle stress, and they create inclusive environments. Do you hear that? Let me read it again. Emotionally diverse leaders know how to handle stress and create inclusive environments. That is gold. Who doesn't want to work in a place like that, where you are aware that your leader is grown emotionally, and that only produces excellence and empathy? People want to be there. Something that I've noticed as an example is, no matter where you're working, if your boss is a tyrant, you're not going to enjoy that place. It's good that we want to, make a living, because this economy is literally disrespecting us, but you still want to be happy. And most times your emotional well-being, your mental health comes first. It should come first. If you're not feeling grounded at work, you're not feeling like you are being heard, or your emotions are not in balance, that means there is something happening, whether internally or externally, that's contributing to that distress. You would need to look into that. That's why I think it's important, just as a side note, that all those PTOs, take them, honey. Take the PTOs, because these jobs don't care about you. Very few organizations care about the employees. Most, they don't. And with recent events, we already know what that looks like. So you need to take care of you. And if your place of business doesn't have a leader who is emotionally attuned and astute, then you've got to cultivate those skills for yourself and not let work be the one that is tearing you down. The third thing that we need to understand on why emotional diversity matters is just for our own personal growth, right? When we embrace a full spectrum of emotions, we are able to be resilient and self-aware. And I've shared that before, but now we're going to get into the crux of it, because that's really important. As you see in this diagram, we have some resilience factors that help us know when we are self-aware and emotionally regulated. We have green, self-awareness and self-acceptance, social relationships, solution orientation, planning for the future, responsibility, optimistic realism. These are the types of things that help you know that you are resilient, that you can take on anything that is thrown your way. That doesn't mean you're not going to feel the impact of what it is you're experiencing, but it just means that you have the tools to help you navigate whatever you're experiencing, right? And so that means you're embracing your emotional diversity and you're fostering that resilience and having adaptive coping skills to help you in the face of life's challenges. Like, truly, when you look at this diagram, it works. I have seen this in my own life. When I have been self-aware, it's easy for me to know exactly what's going on in order to find the help that I need to carry on. For example, something that I have used in my life is I use a grading tool for myself. There's red and there's amber and there's green. Those colors are not new. We see them when we're crossing the road. They're indicators of how we need to proceed when we get to a certain place. Red means stop, amber means and green means go. I look at green. When I'm at green, I know I'm happy. I know I'm mentally stable. I know I'm emotionally sound. I know that I'm handling life as best as I can. I have the tools I am using to carry on. When I'm on amber, I realize that Tendai, there's something that's going on. You don't know what it is yet, but you feel a little bit depleted. With women, this can be during our menstrual cycle, even before. We start experiencing different emotions. We're either easily irritated, we're either struggling with depression, and now more so when it's winter, it's just become exhausting. When I'm on amber, I know it's time to take out the toolkit, time to see what I need. Do I need to set up a therapy appointment? Do I need to do some regulating things? Get back to square one. And then when we get to red, I realize at that point, it's the point of no return. I am struggling. I have clothes all over the house. I am just deep in depression, and I'm struggling to pull myself out. What I've done, I tell myself never want to get to red, because when I've gotten to red, that's when things have become really hard. And at that point you are, struggling. You're not eating. Your health is just here, there, and everywhere. And so I try to use that for myself. That's how I know feeling today. Am I on red? Am I on amber? Am I on green? Where am I on this grading scale that I've created for myself? And it's nothing unique. It doesn't have to be anything complex. It is just something that you use for yourself to track how you are coping with the things around you. I hope that helps, but I'll just round it up a little bit. The science behind emotional diversity. Why emotional diversity matters in relationships. We discussed that. It matters in the workplace and as a leader. It matters in our own personal individual growth. Because when we are embracing a full spectrum of emotion, it leads us to resilience and self-awareness. Now, the fourth thing we're going to talk about is misconceptions about emotional diversity. I touched a little bit on this earlier when I was saying some people will say emotions are irrational and they will bring in toxic positivity, where it's just supposed to be positive vibes all the time, not wanting to express that there is both highs and lows to dealing with life. And so with that, I'm going to talk about emotional suppression versus emotional diversity. Now, this is important because there is a difference naturally, but what does that difference look like in our day-to-day lives? Other article that was based on research, and it was shared this year actually in May, which is awesome because it's current. It talks about repression, which is unwanted impulses or thoughts being unconsciously pushed out of awareness, where without you wanting, these are thoughts that are just going to pop up in your head at any given time. And then suppression is deliberately trying to forget or not think about anything painful or any unwanted thoughts that you might have. You're actively saying, no, I do not want to think about this. I don't want to remember it. I would like to just forget. We've all probably have had those experiences. This article continues on to say, repression is often confused with suppression, another type of defense mechanism where repression involves unconsciously blocking unwanted thoughts or impulses. Suppression is entirely voluntary. Specifically, suppression is deliberately trying to forget or not think about painful unwanted thoughts. What is the history? It says, in order to understand how repression works, it is important to look at how Sigmund Freud viewed the mind. Freud conceived of the human mind as being much like an iceberg. Everybody say Titanic? The top of the iceberg that you can see above water represents the conscious mind. The part of the iceberg that is submerged below the water is still visible is the preconscious mind. The bulk of the iceberg that lies unseen beneath the waterline represents the unconscious. We may not be aware of what lies in the unconscious, but its contents can still affect our behavior in a number of different ways, which is interesting and true. That's why you see those who have gone to therapy, there are things that you discuss in therapy that you realize you had repressed for years and years. the point where it's like a distant memory that you can't even associate with. Certain things that you talk about in therapy bring up all of that back to the forefront, and now you're having to deal with those specific emotions tied to that event. So in this article, it gives you signs of repression: high blood pressure, skin condition, fatigue, headaches, dizziness. It's something that can even come to you in the form of a panic attack. This is where everything that you've just been feeling and trying to suppress is now coming to the surface and is showing up as these things. That's why being able to regulate your emotions is important, so that you can be able to know what you're dealing with, how to navigate that. So when we allow ourselves to experience a wide range of emotions without judgment of self or suppression, we build resilience, which is the ability to bounce back from adversity and navigate difficult situations with grace and strength. And that's when you see most people, like people who should be doing this. When you go through therapy, you realize that you come out stronger. You develop tools to help you. Even if you're not physically with your therapist, you can still navigate whatever situation because you have been given the tools to help you. And that's why it's important to allow yourself to experience all the emotions, because suppressing it is not going to help. Eventually, it's all going to come out. Depending on the type of person you are, it'll come out in different ways. Some can be fatal, others can be debilitating. It is important to understand that the misconceptions of people saying emotions don't matter, they're irrational, those are not accurate. And it's actually bad to think that or say that, because you need to experience the full spectrum of emotion. You need to have grace for yourself, because not all of us can be resilient at the same time. Depending on what we've gone through, we can each be able to get the tools specific to us, because we have been self-aware, that allows us to navigate difficult situations and come out with more strength. The last thing I'm going to share, because it ties in perfectly, tips on how you can cultivate emotional diversity in your life. I wasn't just going to give you all this information and say adios. No. I'm going to give you some tips I found on the World Wide Web that can help you navigate. Thinking is, first of all, you need to practice emotional awareness. What does that look like, Tendai? You can keep a journal to track your feelings. This is going to help you know, like, when am I the most stressed? What is happening in that moment outside of me that is causing whatever is happening? You need to label your emotions. I don't mean this in the journal. It's just you recognizing that I'm sad. You can say I'm disappointed. Saying I'm disappointed, it helps you zone in on whatever it is you're experiencing. Two things. You need to keep a journal to track your feelings, and you need to label your emotions with specificity. What are you exactly dealing with or going through? Number two, you need to create a safe space for yourself. What does that look like? You surround yourself with people who are able to emotionally regulate, people who can respect your emotional expression. Nothing worse than telling a friend something you're going through and they hit you with toxic positivity. With the, oh, hang in there, you can do it. Dude, I know I can do it. I know how to hang in there. But right now, I need you to have empathy. Always surround yourself with people who are creating a safe space for you to fully express your emotions. Number three, engage in active listening. In the last couple of minutes, have you been listening to what I've been saying, or you've just been hearing somebody talk about something? Listening means that you are understanding the other person's emotions without judgment. You are actively choosing to see their world through their eyes. That is important, because it's okay to be self-aware, but you need to be someone who can engage in active listening, try and understand other people and what they're going through, what their emotions are like, so you know how to better communicate with them. Number four, last one, mindfulness practices. Something I'm trying to get into. Meditation helps us to observe our emotions without reacting immediately. And so something I have tried doing when I'm really upset in a certain environment or situation, I try and just count from 10 to 1 and just try and see, by the time I get to 5, 4, 3, 2, I'm kind of regulated at that point. I'm not as charged as I was when I started at 10. And for others, it can be waking up and just choosing to quietly reflect on how your day is going to go. You choosing to decide. And that doesn't mean you're not going to have curveballs. It's life. You're going to have curveballs. But you have sat down and figured out, this is what I'm going to do. And now when I say it, I'm starting to think of anxiety from inside out. Because that's kind of how they were going through everything, right? To try and make sure you have created every possible scenario where you cannot get hurt. But with meditative practices, it's more of observing your emotions and not reacting immediately. So you are an observer of self. You are doing your best to understand yourself, how you react to things, not necessarily trying to ignore or trying to cover up, because you won't only know until it's happening. I hope that makes sense. First one, practice emotional awareness. Second, create safe spaces for yourself and engage in active listening. And 4, mindfulness practices. We're reaching the end of this video. It's been so much fun, so much to emotion. How can I help everyone who's watching this video go back and kind of learn more? I will add in 3 podcast episodes from one of my favorite podcasts called Hidden Brain. They had a series where they were just talking about emotions, bringing in different experts and scientists who have studied emotions for years. You are going to get the opportunity to listen to people who are smarter than I am, who have done much work. This was just for me to get you thinking, to get you recognizing that is another skill that you can learn that can benefit you and also help you navigate life with resilience. Call to action. What do you want to take away with you? I want you to take a few minutes to think about what is one emotion that you are shying away from. What if embracing that emotion could transform your life? What would that look like? Like this painting with all these different colors, these are all your emotions. What are you trying to run away from? What is it that you shy away from? What kind of emotion is it? How can you embrace that emotion so that it can transform your life? You're going to think about that. Remember, emotional diversity isn't just about being perfect. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. So having emotional diversity isn't going to be perfect. It's about being human in all of our different colors, in all of our different facets and spectrum of emotion. Understanding that by cultivating a more flexible and accepting attitude towards your emotions, you can empower yourself to weather life's storms, ups and downs, with greater resilience and equanimity. Lastly, the more you embrace your emotions, the more you thrive. That is all I have for you today. And I hope that it helps you to become more emotionally diverse, because it is hard out there, but it can be less hard when we are equipping ourselves with the right tools to help us become resilient. Thank you so much for being here. I just noticed that I have 76 of you here now. I cannot believe it. I am so grateful. I hope you stay. I hope you enjoy it. And please let me know in the comments what you like, what you are going to do, what emotion you have tried to shy away from that you're now going to choose to embrace and let it transform your life. Or you can just send me a smiley face. I'll take it. Anything at all. Thank you and have a good week. Bye.